meeting to order. This is County Operations Committee for this August 26th here at our lovely Peoria Riverfront Museum. Thank you for hosting us today. I'll be sitting in for Chairman Steve Ricker. So welcome, guys. We'll go ahead and get started with, we need to get a motion to for remote participation from Brian Elsesser. So can I get a motion? Ms. Betty, Ms. Linda, call for a vote to have Brian remotely participate by phone. All in favor? Aye. And
Do we need to go, yes, you can use.
we're not voice votes, I'm sorry. Oh, we are using the iPads, yeah.
They just moved all the, you got it? Here's an update to this and they moved things on.
There we go. Everybody voted? No.
Still waiting. Member Allison, Member Phelan, and Member Renner.
Member Phelan's an aye.
That's unanimous.
Vote is unanimous. Welcome, Brian, to the meeting. Brian, thank you. Awesome. Great. All right, we will move on to, first we need approval of the minutes, and so we have several minutes, July 29, 2025, July 29, 2025 executive session minutes, August 14th, special county operations meeting minutes. So can I get a motion to bring this to the floor? Rob and Eden. Any comments, changes? Seeing none. We'll call for a vote. Aye from Brian Elsesser. Aye from Phelan. Unanimous. Minutes passed. All right, we're going to move on to informational items. And first, we have a IT services update, which I will turn over to Mr. Little.
Can everybody hear me okay? Chairman Rickard asked me to come in and do a couple of presentations this month, and he's not here. And so I've got, the first one we're going to go over is the IT services update. I did the same presentation a year ago, at this same meeting a year ago. So we'll go through this first, and then we'll get into ADA compliance, which we'll have a discussion on. So we'll go over what we call the track and help desk issues from last year, look at the numbers and do some comparisons on those, and then look at where we're at this year. And then we'll look at the projects we completed last year, and then get into what we're working on this year, and what we have in the queue, and what next year looks like. So there's last year's stats from the system, and if you see, we had over 7,200 new tickets come into the system last year. We completed 7,100. Our goal is to complete, if you see, within 4 hours, is to get 50% of those below within 4 hours. We met that last year. It dropped a little bit. We got some explanations why it dropped this year even more. In the first part of the year, this is a total of the number of tickets that come in by category. We have a lot of printer software tickets that came in 2024, and basically the reason that is Microsoft changed security on Windows so that a user could no longer add a printer on their own because of security issues. So anytime a user needs a new printer, a printer driver update, they have to call us. So to alleviate that, you'll see in the projects, we've got a project we did within the new HHS campuses where we brought in a piece of software that actually adds printers automatically based on what group you're in. that work there, and we're starting to roll that out throughout the courthouse and everywhere else. So we should see those printer issues drop down. Top 15 departments, and we'll compare these to it, always kind of switches between the sheriff's office, the health department. Some of these could be higher because whenever we install new equipment in specific departments like this year, we went through and done all of the state's attorney's office and the courts. You'll see on the 2025 data, that data go up because each one of those devices we put in for that's how we track what needs to be done. So if we had 80 to go into the state's attorney's office, let's say, there's 80 tickets under there with who gets the machine, and that's how the guys keep track. So that's last year's data. Let's click down. Here's this year's data. You'll notice things changed a little bit so far. This is out through July, so we have approximately 7 months worth of data. We haven't just looked at the August yet. We've dropped in within 4 hours response to 43.6%. It's actually starting to rise. We noticed in July and so far in August it's coming up. And basically, that's because of the HHS data. We started at the end of the year working on getting that building ready. I got to pull people and put to that. To the same people that do these tickets are the same people that do projects. So I got to pull people off, send them to the building. That's the reason that number dropped. We're seeing it go up. I'm hoping by the end of the year we'll be up into the higher 40s. So we'll be back where we need to be. Things change still. Printer software comes up. Onboarding checklist. Each time we get a new employee, there's a number of things. Tickets ready from the IT side that we have to do. That's that number. More Teams Voice stuff. We completed that project this year. There's installs for laptops. So kind of where we're at now. Once a year done, we'll go back and compare. And then we go back and look, let's say for 2024, we went back and looked at the sheriff. On every ticket created in one thing, it's a 4-page document from lots of ones to 50 tickets last year for onboarding. We do a lot of when people come to the organization, or leave the organization, there's lots of things that's created within the IT realm that we have to do. So, any questions about that?
Mark, are you able to send these slides to us, like, or have Scott put them in the update?
I can, yeah, that's fine. We'll get into ADA compliance later. We'll talk about the future of slides and online and all that also. So, here's kind of a comparison from 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. 2022 was down a little bit because that's when we started using the new software. And it shows within 4 hours, so you're at 53.7, 53.50, and it should drop. Where the top categories is, that's the justice system enterprise. That's not just the case management, that's all uses of that. We started, remember when we put Cisco Duo in 2023, we had lots of calls about that. Printer software was highest in 24, and we're back to the justice system there. And we flip back and forth between different departments on where the top number of tickets come in. It goes between the health department and the sheriff. And this is just another way to look at that. I put it in a graph form that just shows tickets in, tickets completed, and where we're at today. So show it in the bar chart. And then there's the numbers on within the 4 hours time frame. And anything that takes over 3 days to close out. So as you can see, it's down the last 2 years. We're close, hopefully we get that back up.
Mark, can you give me an idea of what would be a 3-day ticket?
Sometimes people put tickets in ahead of time, too long ahead for stuff. And we've got a very inexpensive help desk system. We have a $10,000 system. A lot of people have $100,000 systems. There's timers in there that sometimes you can't shut off. And those timers run. You can't put them in hold. So, or the person put in the ticket, called us, and we call them 3 days in a row, and they'll call us back. That's another. That happens a lot. People will call help desk, they'll try to fix it, not, we've got to hand it off, or they'll take off for it. So, it's
So
a number
what
of
percentage
things.
of that yellow box is people like that?
Yeah. What's that?
What percentage of that yellow box or bar is people
You want to know?
who put them in early or you can't reach?
I don't know, without going in and looking individually ticket by ticket, the system doesn't have the ability to track that. For instance, the early diagrams you saw here, that's not out of the system either. Ben, sitting back there, worked on those for a couple days to get that data. The system just does not do a good job giving us tying data to people, to devices, to software departments. So we have to extract all that. We're looking at demos of new systems right now, but probably 60,000+ dollars, 12 or 10. So we'll track that data.
When you talk about time to closure, is that based off of the ticket creation time or acknowledgement time?
Creation.
Creation.
They call them. Sometimes our guys get called holes, and then you gotta go back and put those in. So to say that data is 100% accurate is not correct. It depends on when our guys put them in, how they close it. When, you know, they get caught out a lot. When they're in the courthouse and at the jail, where some people's wrapped in.
So the ticket is put in by your team, not yours?
Right. They can send the ticket in via mail, and then that still has to go in and get set. But most of it's a call. We have somebody that means the help desk number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Usually we get calls. All right, so let's talk about projects. So 2024, we had 79 brand new projects come in. Each project is a project number that starts with a 24 dot something, and then we assign those. By the end of the year, by December 31st last year, we closed out 69 of those. Some of those were probably carries over from 2023. I broke them down. Basically, we have 4 areas within the department. We have the technology team, which is our largest team. There's 8 people in that group. That's the end user support, and then the next level on the technology side. Applications team, which we have 4. We spent most of the year with 3. We've been trying to hire a replacement for somebody who retires, and we actually have a final interview with someone tomorrow. GIS team, and we do a couple things within the office services side of things. Like, I think one of those is we went out for bid last year for one of the copiers. That's a project. So that's what 2024 looks like. We go down. So some of the, I just highlighted some of the, there's several pages of these completed projects to show you the different things that we consider a project. This was just the application team. A lot of these were stuff you guys may have seen to the committee. I saw public defender, we brought that here. A lot of upgrades. We're continually doing upgrades to the existing systems. That's back when we started Justice SAS investigation that we just finished. Continually updating the justice system. That was last year's update. We had to get new fingerprint readers at the jail and the JUC last year. They put in virus scan at the jail. Marriage app, which is internal app for people who do marriage applications. That's an application we write internally. Enterprise jury management, which we just approved, we're getting ready to replace as a yearly upgrade. The economic interest statements that is sent out to everybody to fill out, that's an internal. Definite Wedge is our online tax system where payments are. There were some process changes there. Munis, our HR portal, where the management team puts all the information in when somebody's hired or somebody's leaving or somebody's getting promoted. That's written internally. Sheriff's personnel tracking, we have an internal app that we wrote that the sheriff tracks all the equipment that's handed out to individuals and inventory. That's an internal app also. Just SWIA, which went live, and then ProLab, that's part of our tax assessment. That was upgraded last year. We flip over to technology team last year. A lot of this is updates on internal moves. That team does all the moves anytime, all throughout the HHS moves that they took care of that. Switch replacements, video ring switches, PC replacements, firmware updates, lots of pieces of equipment, firewall updates. updates, disk-based expansion projects. There's pages of these that they work on. These are not break fix items. These are items that are scheduled to do throughout the year. We have to do on a basis. PC replacements in elections, we replaced them last year. PC replacements in finance. Anytime you want to roll out an updated version of Windows, we have to be testing it as all our 80 applications. So as you've already anybody that was on 10, anybody that was on 11, and you still testing on that. And you'll see some of the Teams voice migration start. JDT, sort of clerk, treasurer, we did those last year. Patches, third-party software updates. We run a lot of third-party software that's not the Windows stuff or the major report stuff that departments use that have to start constantly updated. Education went to the teams. We did traffic system upgrade. There's the print logic trial. I was talking about print management. We started testing that early last year. We replaced the PCs in the GDC and did all the replacements in last year also. The final from the technology team was the security event and incident management system, which you approved last year, which has been implemented. We had to start on a major upgrade of Adobe. Over the years, departments had bought full versions of Adobe, and those have to be updated. And so we centralized that licensing into the IT department, brought all that together, found out who needed it, and did how we upgraded it. And then whenever they do a remodel anywhere, we have to pull equipment out, put equipment back in, so we did the intake remodel last year. And then there's the GIS projects that they completed last year. All right, 2025, here's where we're at today. As of,
Mark,
yes,
can I ask you a question on the GIS?
I will try. Josh is not here.
So I had a constituent that I was speaking with, and she was not even aware of GIS. Do we promote this in the community or what?
We do. Josh goes out and speaks on behalf of the county. He goes out and speaks with the realtors. We do GIS day. I mean, we can do more. I'm always getting questions about that specific stuff that I pass on.
Yeah, she's like, wow, this is really great. I'm like, okay. This.
Well, we will get together with our strategic communications directors. We can push it even more. Josh just loves to go out and talk about GIS. Actually, Josh gets invited to conferences across the country now to talk about GIS.
I got training on that.
Well, I was with a group of guys over the weekend and we were talking about something. I said, oh, you can find that in the GIS. And they go, what? I said, yeah, if you want to compare tax bills with our neighbors, that's public information. So I haven't seen that. Yeah, we can push that more. He would love to continue that. So there's where we're at as of probably this morning. This changes all the time on what's coming. It's 76 new projects so far this year. Done with 57 of them, 40. What we call in flight, being worked on now, I think, among the group. 21 in the application team. 16 in the technology team. 3 in the GIS team. I'll show you those. And 16 in the queue. Just found out another one the other day. The sheriff's getting ready to upgrade and replace his entire electronics locking systems at the jail. And we got a phone call and said there's a meeting today. And last Friday, they went out and set up on that. So there's those ones that just come up that we're not aware of that we respond to try to help out with. Applications team, those are the stuff that they've closed this year. Enterprise supervision, which was a big project, the Oracle good software, all of our iPads. And the reason that's not in the technology side, the iPads, is because we have a gentleman on the application team who's worked for Verizon and knows the iPad stuff very well. So we did that. We did a very good job. Credit card processing, we have a Munis update this year, we have a time and attendance update. Before we did the migration to the cloud, we did a 2023 upgrade to Tyler Enterprise Justice. More enterprise supervision, that migration AD, and instead we just sync the passwords that you use or have to directly log in to get into enterprise supervision. There's the Justice Fund migration we finished in July. Garden One is a management system, I think a bed management system, where that the sheriff uses, we helped out on. Even though we're putting in a new jury management system, we're waiting on the contract. We had to do an upgrade on that earlier this year to keep that up to date. Court records copy process, that's part of the electronic court records in working with the state that we have to capture. And court checking for, I believe it was, which courtroom was that, remember then, for the court checking?
123?
Yeah, so then instead of coming in and waiting, we put in a check-in system so the judge didn't know who was in the room. Application seeing, recorder payments upgrade. There's the website, ADA compliance, which we're going to next, which we started on, and we're working on now. These integrations, AIC, UCCI, and Cordon are all part of the probation system integrations that we're working on, reporting integrations for those once I got in. Inmate Services Project, that's a project the sheriff is in the process, that's in process right now. They bought new tablets and put an entire system in that does the commissary, that does the video visitation, and I think what else. Mainly that. So we've been involved probably down with that. We're doing an entire cashiering feasibility project, which will be coming out to you probably in a month or so with some information on that. Those new ice cream devices we put in last year, we had to do we're working on OS upgrades for those by the vendor. Correction is, the team is working on the external website redesign. If you know that just got kicked off. PubWorks is a program that Highway uses for time and attendance to track all their jobs and all the different projects that their employees are on. We got a report from the company. That was an on-site one, they're moving that to the cloud, so that's moving. And then we just finished the migration with Enterprise Justice, and now we got an upgrade to do. So that's in testing. Few projects, the application team, new HHS pension, they want a public opens app to serve that one. We're probably going to write that internally. We're looking at a new employee expense program to make when people travel and put in expenses, that's a little easier to track. So these are all sitting out in the queue waiting for someone to come available, or some of them are waiting for the vendor. So I won't go through all these, but this is the team meeting is closed so far this year. Anything you have questions on? They asked me how long I was going to take it, and I said, not more than an hour and a half, so. Any questions on these? I'll send this to everyone, probably to Scott and get it out. Moving on. Lots of team choice. We're down to one telephone line on that existing source. So that has to be fired. That's going to get swapped out next week or so. The phone switch in the courthouse will be removed at that time. So everybody else is on team choice across the board. So the other thing we've done is you see the courthouse and fax migration. We've gotten rid of the majority of the fax machines in our organization across the board. All HIPAA compliant, all compliance. So big change from getting rid of all. We went into departments and asked the question, why do you have 3 fax machines? I don't know, we don't use any of them. So we did went through and removed all fax machines and all that. So we did option. Any questions on any of those? That's what they're working on right now. There's a whole list of all the active projects on that end. Some of these will get done by the end of the year. I know it's only August, but we're getting towards the end. And like I said before, everybody that works in the projects are also the same people who do all the support tickets that we see. So they got to manage the time back and forth. There's a lot of implementations being talked about. And that's what's in the queue right now, which is just a few things. But once we go through the budget and to see what budget numbers they get, then we'll build all the projects for next year based on all the equipment and all the updates and all the stuff. And there's the closed projects for GIS this year. A lot of upgrades within the GIS system this year. There's been a lot of time on the system they have in upgrades. There's their active projects that they're working on. And there's what's in the queue. We're waiting on the new aerial data. The state now updates for the aerial updates. We're waiting for that to come in. There'll be a lot of work for them to import the aerial information. Sure.
Degree management solution.
That is working with the emergency management group, and applications are stored in those applications, which allow them to manage debris using mapping and placing of debris after a tornado. So we're working with them on that specifically. Something new.
I have a couple comments and then questions as well. Thank you for putting this all together. I know last time you were given what I thought was a really good timeline to put information together, and I hope we're getting a little time on this. One question would be, if you were to present this to us again, I would appreciate it if you could make it a package, so we have a little time to review this, obviously a lot to look at. So trying to digest it, going through it can be a little bit difficult. I think you're probably aware of the question already that I asked. I just have some response to it. Around this time last year, also going through budget season, it seems like there's a need for an IT person that is west of the courthouse. What I mean by that,
Yep.
jail,
Yep.
JVC,
Yep.
highway, and when I look at ticket creation, the JVC and the sheriff's department are in the top five.
Right.
And so could you talk through that?
We've been looking, Scott queued me up to that. I'll have a more formal response to that once we get the data. We're trying to pull the data out and look. We started looking through. We used to have a person out there, but what we found is majority of the time they were idle and they were there to respond to when they needed something fixed. And since that time, not that the jail is not important, but with the technology implementation in the courts, their dependency on technology and all the AV in the courts, I have to keep an extra person at that courthouse at all times now to react to courts. I mean, it's an immediate phone call, we got a big case on the, and that's on top of the help desk person that we need. So I have to keep two at the courthouse at all times. One to answer the phone. That person to answer the phone also works on machine replacements and builds and does other things. And then one person to react to immediate things, and that gives me two others to cover the rest of the county. And if one of those are gone, which I had earlier this year, one went away on military, then I'm leaving one person. And I get one person calling sick, and I got two. I mean, I've had days where we get two people, and we really struggle with two people. I don't disagree with you. I think it's a great question. I would love to put something out there, but I can't with the current number of people. It's just technology is changing since we really pulled back from the jail when COVID hit, because they didn't know jail whatever that. We do a lot remote, like this list here. We looked at a lot of this stuff we did remote. But I think what's really going to help the jail is they have a lot of contractors out there working on it tonight. There's an example last week. What was it, the cameras or something like down Ben? They called us. What do you guys do to our cameras? We did nothing. Didn't touch them. And nobody out there. Well, vendor claims you did it, blah, blah, blah. Well, after going back through the film, which is lots of cameras, the vendor unplugged the camera system and did that. So when there's vendors working out there, like I said, all the time, and it would help to have somebody to be there with those vendors. Because we run our own wireless system in there, the vendors run their own wireless system there. We run our own wired network in there, the vendors run their own wired network. So there's a lot of cross out there. And there's a lot more technology in the jail than there ever used to be. And I'm so glad when we put wireless in the jail that we covered all the jail, because now we're using it. Originally, when I've been talking, I said, we'll never use wireless throughout the jail. And I said, I'd like to differ. I think we will, we'll put them in anyway. Well, now we're using it. So I'd love to put a person out there. I don't have anything for that. So
So going along that, how many of those 3+ day tickets are out at the jail?
anything that's critical, we send somebody out.
But it takes at least half an hour, right, to get?
Oh, yeah. And it depends on if they're there. It depends on what they need. I mean, if we get calls on the weekend, I have to send the people to jail on the weekend, and I would pay them overtime from the leave, from the their equipment. And so the jail is truly the most 24-hour operation we have. And their needs for technology and support continue to rise.
Or having someone, is there someone we can put there and in their idle time they can work remotely on other projects?
They could. The other thing we found the last time we tried this is that we didn't rotate. We need to rotate because our group rotates on call, and I can't have the jail person on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Last time, the person who had been at the jail even before I got here. And we had a hard time pulling that person back and rotating people through. If we did it again, and we had another person, we would rotate. We would have to. And that gives them chances, because they'll get a call over the weekend where a judge may be working on something, they've got to react to that. So there's got to be a rotation.
Looking at those 3+ help desk days, you know, it's hard to know what is bad data, right? That, you know,
We haven't
someone called
dug
and
into
didn't
it,
answer,
yeah.
how much are legitimate, it took 3 days to get this.
We'll dig in some more and see
I
what goes.
appreciate that. And how much of that is someone 4 o'clock on a Friday asks for help and on a Monday? I mean, does it count that as 3 days over a?
No, it only does business hours,
Okay.
and we turn those off.
I just want to say that maybe I'm looking at that a little bit differently than you, but if you look at a pipe break at your house, sometimes those aren't immediate fixes. IT would probably say the same for certain technical programs and software that you guys are managing, but I do want to ask one question, again, back to this potential, or just the discussion of an employee out there. Are employees currently driving their own vehicles to the jail?
Yeah.
Is there a reason they're not using vehicles out of the,
Because the only thing in the pool is a Prius, and I can't haul all the equipment around in a Prius. We, in our budget request, we requested 2 vehicles, and that really came about as part of the HHS, and came around the back one day, and some employee with a car back there, put $1,000 switches in the car. I'm like, right, you gotta change that. So,
all the servers and larger?
yeah, everything. We don't keep anything out there, we keep everything centrally stored so we can inventory and keep track of it. So, yeah, we have weekends when we're doing upgrading stuff where our employees are hauling equipment around in the cars. So we have a request for 2 explorers to be used by IT and GIS shared. So, because GIS goes out a lot too. They go out and request to fly drones. They go out to the highway and they use the drones to do bridge inspections in areas where it's very difficult to get under a bridge. They'll call and say, "You bring the drone out and fly it for us." We have both of our GIS gentlemen are certified pilots and recertified.
My question may be more practical. Do we not have a fleet of vehicles that we will over use?
So, Member Allison's question was, do we not have a fleet of vehicles available for use? There was a time when we did have that. These days, there is essentially one communal vehicle, the Prius that Mark referenced, that any team member that is not assigned to the vehicle because of their job duties could check out in administration. So we have one vehicle that we call, referred to as a pool car. Every other vehicle in the inventory is assigned to someone, whether it be a building inspector, a sheriff's deputy, a probation officer, whatever the case may be. And there, we do have team members that in other offices and departments that drive their personal vehicles as well.
No other questions, we'll move on to the second agenda item.
Yep.
Which is the new federal mandate for digital accountability.
So, anybody aware of the new mandate for digital accountability for counties? Over 50,000. Gretchen can't read it. Well, that's what we covered today. It has to do with the content on or all our web presence, all our social media, all our mobile apps. There are new guidelines that everyone must be in compliance with, and I was asked to bring this information forward this month. Here's what we're going to talk about.
ask for this to be a little bit high level,
I did.
because we can get really deep into the weeds with this. But I do think that if we needed to, we could individually or have some sort of meeting to go a little bit deeper in the weeds with people need to.
I would say that depression was a lot of it too. Because actually, IT does not handle any of our external content, except for our applications. All the websites are handled by the depression group or the departments. They handle that content. We don't handle content, we manage the technology on that content. So here's what we're going to talk about. We'll do an introduction to it, what it really is, what's covered, where we're at today, a strategy to become compliant, and then I'll get some next steps with that. New rule goes into effect for counties with populations over 50,000, April 24th of next year. They must be at the web content level 2.1, level 2A by that date. It ensures accessibility for all users across all public-facing websites, documents, and applications. Legal and financial risk. This is a Department of Justice enforcement. And the biggest thing that all the counties are worried about, as I talk to my peers across the country, and there are numerous web education on weeklies, potential for private litigation. Because there are tools out there that anybody can download, run against the county website, and if it's not ADA compliant, they can turn around and sue us. So that is the biggest part of this litigation. The other thing I'm reading, and if you really read into the rule, it says we must make our best effort to meet this. So that's tracking everything we're doing and everything we're going to do. But there's also discussion with the Department of Justice that's started talking about fines of $75,000 per incident. So I haven't seen that anywhere, but it's starting to pop up now. I have given Jenny a copy of the rule, and she's looked over it. So deadline is less than 9 months away, and we have a county-wide strategy to get into compliance. The governance process, adoption of a county-wide digital accessibility policy, which we don't have, and creation and funding of a full-time digital accessibility coordinator position. That's what I'll talk about moving on. But my recommendation, and that has come out of this, is that we need a full-time person within the administration department and that area to manage all this. It's not an IT position. It needs to fall under Rachel's area. So vendor management, ensuring vendors comply with digital accessibility, which we'll talk about a little more. We can't contract our way out of this, even though the vendor owns the system and controls the system. We're held liable for the content they're putting out there with our name on it. Allocating funds for digital accessibility initiatives, and promote a culture of digital accessibility within the county. Since we have a disparate system of how we manage all of that information, there's got to be a culture created for people to understand that. Kind of a summary. It follows under the Title II of the American Disabilities Act, where the rules follow. All digital service must be accessible to people with disabilities. There's the deadline. There's the legal implications, and risk of noncompliance, exposure to legal risk. Noncompliance can lead to significant legal risk for the county, potential for Department of Justice enforcement action, and the possibility of costly private litigation. Overview of the rule. Compliance is ensures accessibility for people with disabilities. Applies to public-facing websites, documents, mobile applications, and all social media. That is all of that has to do with compliance. And really what it does is the standard gives something to measure technically against. There are tools now we can go out and run against our systems and compare against the current standard. So, text alternatives for images. Anytime you put an image on a website or you put an image in social media, you have to have a text alternative to that explaining what that is if somebody is probably videos, this is a big one. We live stream all of our committee meetings, we live stream all of our board meetings. We now have to provide live closed captioning for all of our meetings. We haven't had that figured out, we're investigating that. But today, anytime we do a meeting, it's got to have live closed captioning for those meetings. The way we do it today, we upload it to YouTube, and then YouTube adds that. According to regulation, that's not good enough. We have to go in and pull control on that and make sure YouTube is accurate. Operable functions, all functions must be navigable and interactive for all users. So any forms on websites or anything anybody has to fill out, it has to be used with a keyboard. You can't require a mouse. So that's another change. Clear content and interfaces, clear and predictable user interfaces, the use of plain language, providing clear instruction on forms. And there's a lot of technologies that we must be compatible with. It's called screen readers that people can utilize to add on top of their computer to better read screens. All of our web presence has to be compatible with all those also. So this is kind of question. It applies to all public-facing content. It includes the main county homepage and example, sheriff's office, the health department, the county election page. We do online tax payments, any payment pages, any applications, everything just covers. It's just a few to give you an example. Residents must have accessibility experience on all of our platforms. Nothing is excluded. One of the areas that's a challenge is PDFs. All PDF documents must be accessible. If you think about all of our meeting minutes that are out there over the years in PDF, those all have to be made accessible, and that's not an easy process. A PDF in the form it's in today is not compliant. There has to be a process to go through and convert those. Now, the way the rule reads is anything that's within 2 years, so starting April 26, 2026, anything back from that point for 2 years, we have to create to be accessible. Anything prior to that, we can put in an archive in a separate area on the web, and it doesn't have to be accessible. But if a constituent or member of the public reaches out to us and say, I want that document from 2008 that's a PDF to be accessible, then we have to pull it forward, convert it all in So, and right, Adobe's working on it, but still a raw PDF is not accessible. There are steps, about 15 steps to make those accessible. The first thing is, hopefully you have the Word document you can convert it from. So that's an area that's going to be a challenge. Is what documents you keep online and all accessible. Legal requirements. Exam documents must, like I said, be available on request, and accessible format must be provided promptly if requested by a person with a disability. So we have to react to those. Third-party vendors, county responsibility for accessibility. Legal responsibility remains with the county and not contract away ADA applications. So all the different applications that vendors provide us that have web information, websites attached to them, and applications that then are accessed outside, we are responsible for this. Example, paying taxes on permit applications. The liability rests with the county. Vendors' platform issues do not. That's all the county from responsibility. The new jury system that you guys approved 2 weeks ago, that's still entirely legal for ADA compliance that we added to that. That will be public proceedings. We're going to have to move that forward. Even new. This is just kind of live streams, recorded video, audio descriptions for important visual information. The interesting now is, which I was looking at the other, as I was putting this together within PowerPoint and pulling the data in, PowerPoint will actually do an accessibility scan of your documents today and tell you what's accessible on each page and what's not fixed. This one is really accessible. My last one, I love it. So over-the-counter vendor-provided website. We are currently, but we scanned all our sites. Number of vendor-provided or newer internal websites are at current compliance today. All websites need substantial work to comply in order to meet that level. We purchased 2 different pieces of software that allow us to scan all our main websites, which are through Civics Plus, and that scan is actually still running. And that scan has some AI built into it that it will fix what it can fix, and then at the end when it's done, it'll pop out what it didn't fix, and that scan will take 90 days. So it's running right now. All the rest of our sites we've scanned, we know what needs fixed. We've scanned all our vendor sites, we know what needs fixed. The challenge is, do we have time to get it done? I had to reallocate a person within the department that's focused on this, not all the time, but part-time, because she has other things she's got to focus on, projects that are in process, but I got a change request today to okay changes to our election mail and election request we do online when somebody wants a ballot mail. Rewrote that. She's got that one fixed. So it's going through each one of those to fix it. So there's kind of our ranges, what we found in the first round. We've had some of those sites were 76% compliant, some of them were 20% compliant. Issues per site range from 15 issues to some to 64 and more. I believe there's more, but I think the tools will continue to improve. The main website, where everything flows through, was too large for an automated scan. We're running this new scan now that's will take 9 days to go through. We usually have tools to automate that on that side of things. We've got several things in manual testing. And like I said, the full scope of the problem is larger than I think reported. So we'll get down to the end. Both county managers and vendors have to meet compliance. Some of the sites that score highly are the judicial portal, which is off the Tyler side at 76%. Our most poorly ones are the property tax side on it's only 36%. So all those don't work. Kind of already talking about. So. Governance policy. I think the first step coming out of this, what we need to do is adopt the countywide policy and bring that to the board by the end of the year. Supporting the mandate, that's one of the things from the legal side that are very important to have that accessible and visible all over your website, that this board does support that and we do everything we can to comply. It also puts some policy in there from an employee side that anybody who's putting public information out there must follow compliance rules. So we'll work on that. We already have a task force. It's been strategic communications and IT. We started meeting late last year, putting together all the details and a plan for this. And we're starting on remediation right now. All future, and a little bit more about vendor management. All new RFPs and contracts must include non-negotiable clauses required full compliance. And one of the next things we're also going to do, and I will work with the state's attorney to send letters to all our current vendors who have sites that are not compliant and have sent for a compliance roadmap. I've talked to many of them. They've all said, oh yeah, we're going to do that. But I think on the legal side, we need to send something to make sure they are compliant. So I'm talking about that. My recommendation after I dug into this and spent about the last 6, 7, 8 months is we need a full-time person to be the gatekeeper and monitor this corrections team. I think the long corrections team because they handle all the content. Currently, I got something internally. I can't put them on 100% because there's other things that I got them working on for the courts. I got probation stuff they're working on, but they work on it as they can. And compliance, it's a risk. Will we make it? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We do have some options. I've actually reached out to one of my vendors who does a lot of work with the state. State's got some contracts with some organizations that are helping them. And I'm going to try to find out if those were publicly bid, then you might be able to ride that contract and get some help. I do have some dollars in the budget this year in order to make sure we get some help. So But I think we've got a plan, we're tracking it, we just need to keep going, and I think we're making a great effort on it, but like I said, I think there's gotta be a gatekeeper there moving forward, to have somebody, keep an eye on everything moving forward, because once we get it fixed, it can be undone just as quick as we fixed it all. So, just some summary, cultural shift, different things, I'll do that focus on the permanent change. Let's go on to the last one. So here's kind of where we're at. Next steps, Graphic Countywide Digital Accessibility Policy. Create a job description for a digital accessibility coordinator. It doesn't have to be a title. I've still got a meeting in 2 weeks with Scott and Gretchen to talk about that. A compliance task force, which we already have. And then progress reports, report out to the county administrator and Scott on a monthly basis, and we'll come back to this committee and keep updated also. So, that.
Any questions?
I have a question.
I would,
Sharon?
I have several. Okay, so first of all, when was this came out from the feds, right?
sometime spring of last year,
Okay.
well, we didn't really hear about it.
Okay, obviously there's been a change in administration.
Perhaps.
Yeah, do you see any changes coming with this?
We were all
Okay,
we met, because I met with my NACO peers and my other peers, we were all hoping,
yeah,
but that has not happened. And it may sound like it relates to the game, but we never got any compliance testing tools until early 25. They set the rules, but there was nobody to check them.
okay,
So we bought tools in the first quarter of this year. And I would say we're ahead of the game for some folks. I mean, I was on a web call last week with several thousand individuals across the country that work for counties, and they did a poll. 60% of the people have even looked at it.
yeah,
So we're moving, but I'm still worried we're good. I think we'll be okay, but it's hard to tell.
yeah, that was one of my other questions. What are other governments doing? I mean, some are so small, it's gonna be really difficult.
The county,
I mean, 50,000 and above, correct?
right.
Yeah,
And then a year later, it's everybody else.
yeah,
And I
okay,
think
so
this
they,
local government, I don't think it's kind of interesting how they spread it out over different size organizations.
yeah. So you talk about this task force a little more that you talked about, because I think that ties into what other governments are doing. Is that what you're working with, is other, like Tazewell County, Woodford County, any of the local?
I have not worked with anybody local. Tazewell doesn't have a dedicated IT department anymore. They outsourced that after they had the incident a few years ago. I talked to McLean. Civics Plus, who manages our websites and where all our websites are, and they host all that. They hold web meetings weekly, trying to, but they're also making money off this too, to make it compliant. So it's kind of interesting if you really dig into that and think about that. Yeah, you're hosting it, we use your software to create it, but now we got to buy software to fix the software that Engage to create. So it's, you kind of get in this loop when you start thinking about it.
Yeah, and then I wrote down contract work. Is there someone who's doing this around the area that, we could contract with to do this?
That's what we're going to look into.
Okay,
I reached out, we had a vendor we use, Insight used it a lot for a lot of different things. And they're focused on the government space, and they have a lot of third parties that they feed contractors through. We're going to get together with them, because like I said, there's some people working in other counties. We're going to see if we can pull that in and get some help, because this could be remote help. It doesn't have to be somebody.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be on site.
right. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of my questions was on contract work too, because once you get this set up and moving, then it's much easier.
Right.
My employer is going through the same issues, and so I've been trained on how to make my slides and stuff compliant. So I appreciate what's happening. Talk about like a meeting like this, and like a year from now, if you give a presentation, are you going to be able to do it this way? And is us using a phone to do a live stream going to
Only
be
if we
compliant?
can add closed captions to that phone feed. And I
Yeah.
don't know how that's
what about, I can't read those slides. I'm short-sighted, that's my disability, but what else? So are slides going to have to be compliant and all that too?
They will. I don't have. Here it is. There you go.
When we get bids for contracts, like PJ Hager and those types of companies, they submit bids and then we look them over in the packets. Will that stuff have to,
If it's put on our website and it's public facing, it will have to be performed.
will that affect their making of it, or will that only be on our end?
If we write our bid specs to say that all bid specs must be ADA compliance electronically sent to us, then that's something those are part of that policy and things we're gonna have to talk about.
And no more handwritten.
No more handwritten stuff. It's, once you really dig into it, this thing, you start peeling back the onion on it, it gets really rich.
Any other questions? Like I said, ask for high level.
Trying to make it high level as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to me. I know it was long, but thank you.
Well, we needed to get it out there, but really to get an idea of what is going on. So, all right, we will move on. Okay, up next is resolutions. So we first have the 4.1 countywide paid parental leave policy. Can I get a motion to bring that to the floor? Danny and Eden and Shauna will be the one. Thank you.
All right. There we go. Okay, so last month we brought before you for discussion purposes the paid leave policy. What we had, we gave a general overview, and I'm happy to do that again today. Everything that's in the packet is the same as what we talked about with one exception. I wanted to highlight that. We had originally talked about mirroring the city's policy, which is 2 weeks of paid parental leave. There was some discussion at the county board meeting last week. And after that discussion, Chairman Ricker asked us to have the resolution drafted to be for a 4-week period instead of 2 weeks. So that was the change that is in the resolution from what we talked about previously. This does not add any additional leave time for employees. Any employee to qualify for this must already be approved for up to 12 weeks of paid leave via FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act and is a federal leave policy. What this does is currently on day 1, the employee must start leaving their leave time concurrent with FMLA. What this does is kind of change the funding mechanism to where there would be, under the current resolution before you, 4 weeks of potential paid leave, and then after that 4-week period, then the employee would have to start using their leave bank up to the 12 weeks. So it's still at a maximum of 12 weeks as dictated by their doctor, but it just means that they will receive their regular rate of pay without using leave time for the first 4 weeks, and then their leave time will kick in. To put some context to it, it's in the agenda briefing, but Angela and her team went and looked, and over the past 18 months, we've had 20 of our 650 employees approved for FMLA for birth or adoption of a child. So the scope in terms of the number of employees, obviously that number varies from year to year, but if that had been in the last 18 months, there was only 20 people that this would have affected. So it's not something that we think is going to affect, a third of the workforce or a quarter of the workforce at any given time. But like I said, it doesn't extend the amount of leave, it just changes how they are paid during that first 4-week period. One of the questions that I was asked after the board meeting, the language that we put into the highway contract that was approved at the board meeting was based upon a 2-week period. Should this this resolution pass for 4 weeks today, what we would do is just do a sign letter with the union saying that their contract mirrors personnel policy, which is basically how it's going to operate. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
I know like the state gets 10 weeks. When we showed the comparables, there were some with up to, I think, 12 weeks. Why not 6 weeks on this?
That was just the direction of the convention to bring forward 4 weeks to start the discussion. So, should you want 6 weeks, we can obviously amend that to whatever time period we want.
Can you talk about, it says that it cannot be paid intermittently, but FMLA could be included, can you talk about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently, with just any type of FMLA leave, whether it's for birth or adoption, or say you have your knee replaced, there's 2 different ways that FMLA can be administered. There's full FMLA, which means you are just off work for an extended period of time. Then there's intermittent leave. So, for example, you have your knee replaced and you're off for 2 weeks for your surgery and recovery, and then you have to go to therapy 2 days a week. So you're in the office 5 days a week, but you leave 2 hours a day for 2 days to go to your physical therapy. That is considered the intermittent part, which means you're not off. You're kind of in and out of the office and leaving for appointments and things like that. For administrative purposes, we believe for parental leave, most policies that we looked at, including the city, was not intermittent. So it wasn't, hey, I'll work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'll be on parental leave Tuesday, Thursday, right? We think for administrative purposes, at least at first, we need to have it be full FMLA, so that it's easier to track.
I guess I'm just trying to understand, so if a parent is fostering or has adopted, and they have a child that meets medical necessity and requires a series of appointments that aren't all together, then they could not qualify to get paid leave, is that right?
So they would, but it would be under the child's FMLA. So the way FMLA works is it's either for yourself or for a family member. So the paid parental leave policy would be tied to the individual's, the employee's parental leave piece. But if that child had a medical condition that required them to be off work or take to appointments or something like that, then they would apply for medical leave for their child. And so that would not really be paid parental leave, it would be medical leave for that child. So at a maximum anybody can have is 480 hours, so that would offset this a little bit, but if they adopted somebody and say that child had a medical condition, then they would be having that child's physician fill out the paperwork, and it would be leave for the care of that child, not leave tied to the adoption. Does that answer your question? It can get a little convoluted.
Also, just to clarify, isn't there a period of time, like 1 year or so, that the employee must be employed to qualify for FMLA?
Yes, so they have to work at least 1,250 hours during the 12 consecutive months prior to requesting the leave. So we can't have somebody, that starts in 3 months into their employment request to take leave under FMLA law. It has to be done.
Well, actually, I would support and encourage a 6-week period of leave. But also, is there anything that would stop an employee from taking, say, the 6 weeks and then terminating employment immediately after? Is there any way to protect us from them taking advantage of
I would say no, and I would say we currently would have that situation as well. Because once somebody, say they are approved for 12 weeks of leave currently today, and they only have 6 weeks of leave time, they can take that 6 weeks of leave time and quit Monday of week 7. There's really nothing that we can put in place to prevent that. Good question.
Jenny, make sure I do this right, but can we make an amendment to support a 6-week leave instead of 4? So do I make that motion? And then vote on the... So I make that motion. I think, A, that helps us as we want to be a great employer in this area. And I think that also helps our employees be productive when they're back by having had that, are able to take that time off and afford it.
In concept, I like the idea, but I need more information. I want to see what other governments are doing, so I want more information. So I'll just say, at this time, I will not support for 6 weeks, but I could in the future, once I have more information.
So off the top of my head, City of Peoria does 2 weeks, Cook County and Lake County do a full 12. And I believe the other one we looked at did 8, 6. Sorry, I should have had that up here with me. 2 weeks is on the low end. 4 to 6 is mid-range, I would say, for government.
I don't know, but as well, Woodford, McLean, you know, I know the counties around this. Like I said, at this point, I'm not going to support it, but I would be willing to, once the information comes back, I see additional information.
We can pull that and email it to the committee members if you'd like, for the February.
Any other discussion, questions? Ryan?
So 4 weeks to 6 weeks. That's right.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I've heard almost everything, but I guess my question.
Okay.
And just one item I want to clarify too, this would be effective October 1st, so if it passes committee, it would go to September board, and then that gives Angela and her team a couple weeks to get it out there in the to the employees and also the right paperwork updated and things like that.
Any other questions? What was that one?
I know we heard from staff at a meeting, a recommendation for 6 weeks. I'd like to hear from the administration on what challenges we presented if we were to adjust this resolution.
So Member Phelan's question was, what challenges might be presented if the amendment were to pass? I think we either have in the packet or Sean can speak to what the financial impact would be. I don't have those numbers in front of me, so if she does, I'd ask her to speak to that. Operationally and logistically, the team member that's probably taking the full 12 weeks to start with. So 0 to very minimal impact if the first 4 weeks or 6 weeks of that is compensated versus not. So I don't really see an operational impact. I think the impact would be financial in terms of what that looks like to us. That being said, was it 50,000 for 2 weeks? Is that what it was? So we'd go from 50,000 for 2 weeks to 100,000 for 4 weeks to 150,000 based on history of what the financial impact of the organization might be.
Have we looked at the number of employees, the average and what their leave bank balance was currently? And that was, do you remember? I think it was about 4 weeks, right? Roughly.
There was like 300 people that had less than 4 weeks, 4 weeks or less.
So out of our 650 employees, when we looked at leave banks, 300 of those employees had 4 weeks or less of leave time. So if you figure, typically for a female for the birth of a child, they're going to want to try to take that full 12 weeks. That would mean that the policy would kick in for 4 weeks. They would use their own leave bank for 4 weeks, and then they would be in unpaid status for those remaining 4 weeks of that 12-week leave. So there would not, in the bulk of the workforce, be a big push out of leave time for use at a later date. Most of that would still be used within that time frame.
Have you taken into account overtime for people that, in departments, say a small department, somebody takes the lead? What is the impact on the budget in overtime?
So we did not,
Fill in.
we did not look at that component in terms of the backfilling of that position, mainly because it doesn't extend the leave per se typically. They would still be off and that overtime would have been incurred. This just means that this employee is getting paid. It's going to be getting paid the first 4 weeks without using their leave time. Having said that, there may be some instances where somebody might be off a couple weeks longer because of this than what they would have been. Say if it's, you know, not the birthing parent, but the partner, right, might be off a little bit longer. There really wasn't a good way for us to anticipate what that average would look like, to be honest. But the actual, there's no overtime calculation for that employee because they'll just be paid at that 4 weeks would be at their standard rate of pay. But
I'm talking about the departments.
right, we did not look at that component of it because it doesn't really extend the amount of time they'll be out. It was just the payment. Because typically somebody will be approved for up to 12 weeks anyway, so we didn't calculate that piece of it.
It is, like, the positions are fully funded anyway, so the cost to us isn't extra, it would be lost work.
Correct.
So it's not like it's gonna cost us $150,000 more, because those positions it's already in the budget for those positions.
Correct. Yes. We budget their full year salary. We don't anticipate for anything.
Any other questions? No, I would just have to say, I actually asked this question as well. And I guess that's more so because I come from the private sector and not the public sector, so I'm just used to 6 weeks. It just seems normal to me. And Shauna did a great job trying to sort of explain it to me, but I feel like in Rob's situation, the position is already budgeted. And another key point that I brought up was typically daycare centers don't take kids until they're 6 weeks old. So when you just talk about the person's, you know, morale and, you know, having a child and trying to get organized and having that burden on your back of what to do for those 2 weeks if we go to the board is something that I don't really feel like it's necessary to put on, and it will affect productivity when your mind is somewhere else or you're worried about who's gonna watch your kids. So that's just my personal opinion. Like I said, I just come from the private sector where I just was like, oh, it's 6 weeks, right? Isn't that normal? And I guess it's not. So I would just say that I would be in support of this, just to share that information as well. Comments, questions?
The last comment that I would make is I've heard it a couple of times in this meeting, but also previously, the city's doing this, the city's doing this. I think right now, today, in front of us, we have a chance to show the city what the county is doing by supporting our people, and I would just ask for support in this amendment.
And for vote on the amendment, to amend before, okay.
Are we able to do that online or is that a voice vote?
It'll be a voice vote.
Voice vote to do an amendment from the 4 weeks to the 6 weeks. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That includes Brian and myself. Any nays? 1 nay. Motion passes.
We will see if we can get that data and out to you by the end of next week. It'll just take a little time for me to back us up.
Great, thank you. We're already on the floor, so now we need to actually take a vote for the amended resolution. Correct. All in favor?
You can be.
Oh, we're doing this on the, sorry, computer vote. Brian is an aye. Motion passes with 8 ayes and 1 nay. Thank you. Thank you all for your information and sharing and digging deep into that. All right, we will move on to committee action, which is a review of the executive session minutes that I believe I pass over to Jenny.
It's a recommendation of the state's attorney's office that all previously held minutes continue to be held because the need for confidentiality still exists, and to destroy executive session audio recordings that are more than 2 years old, except for those that relate to pending litigation.
We need to take a vote to adopt the recommendation of Jenny. Motion by Betty, second by Eden. Are we voting voice or on
It's on.
iPad? It's on, okay. I guess it might look. Please vote. Brian's and I. Unanimous. Motion carries. Last thing, public comment. Seeing none. Any miscellaneous? Seeing none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.